The Middle Ages. This thousand-year span of history often evokes images of knights, castles, and yes, darkness. But this period, sandwiched between the fall of Rome and the Renaissance, deserves a closer look. It was far more dynamic than the label Dark Ages suggests. Instead, picture a time of profound change, a slow but steady climb out of the ashes of a fallen empire. From roughly the 5th to the 15th centuries, Europe and much of the world experienced a reshaping of societies, a blossoming of faith, and the birth pangs of new technologies. It was a time when the seeds of modern Western civilization were sown. The collapse of Roman order led to new systems of governance. The Catholic Church rose to become a dominant force, and amidst the turbulence, the human spirit endured, innovated, and laid the groundwork for the Renaissance to come. The term Dark Ages itself is a misnomer, a label applied later by those who saw themselves as more enlightened. This period was anything but static or devoid of light. It was a time of adaptation, resilience, and the slow, steady emergence of new ideas and ways of life. To understand the Middle Ages is to understand the foundations upon which our modern world stands. The Middle Ages were not confined to Europe. This era witnessed a vibrant interconnectedness across vast distances, a global tapestry woven with threads of trade, religion, and conflict. While Europe was finding its footing, the Byzantine Empire, heir to Rome's Eastern legacy, flourished with dazzling art and scholarship. Constantinople, its capital, stood as a beacon of civilization, bridging East and West. To the east, the Islamic Golden Age was in full swing. From Baghdad to Cordoba, Muslim scholars made groundbreaking discoveries in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. The astrolabe, a tool for navigation using the stars, was refined. Algebra was born. Hospitals, as we know them, emerged. These advancements spread along the Silk Road, a network of routes that crisscrossed Asia, carrying not just goods but also ideas. Chinese inventions like gunpowder and the compass made their way westward, eventually influencing European warfare and exploration. Meanwhile, the stories of Marco Polo, the Venetian merchant who traveled to the court of Kublai Khan, captivated European imaginations, fueling a fascination with the East. The Middle Ages were a time of global exchange where cultures interacted and learned from one another. This flow of knowledge and goods laid the groundwork for the interconnected world we live in today. Imagine a world without centralized governments, police forces, or standing armies. This was the reality of Europe after the fall of Rome. Out of this vacuum arose feudalism, a complex system of obligations and relationships that provided a semblance of order. At the heart of this system was the exchange of land for loyalty and military service. Kings, often lacking the power to directly control vast territories, granted land to nobles, known as vassals. In return, vassals swore fealty to their king, pledging to provide soldiers and support in times of war. This system trickled down the social ladder. Vassals could grant portions of their land to lesser lords, who in turn would owe them allegiance. At the bottom were the peasants, who worked the land and provided food for those above them. Peasants were bound to the land by manorialism, a system that obligated them to work for the lord of the manor in exchange for protection and a small plot of land for themselves. While rigid, the feudal system provided a framework for governance and security in a turbulent age. It fostered a sense of community and interdependence, albeit within a clearly defined hierarchy. Over time, this system would evolve, giving way to more centralized states and the rise of powerful cities. In the aftermath of Rome's collapse, a new unifying force emerged in Europe: the Catholic Church. As political structures crumbled, the Church provided spiritual guidance, social stability, and a sense of continuity with the past. It became the most powerful institution in medieval Europe, wielding influence over both kings and commoners. Monasteries became centers of learning, preserving ancient texts and fostering scholarship. The Church was instrumental in promoting literacy and education. It established universities which would become hubs of intellectual life. Cathedrals, grand testaments to faith, towered over medieval cities, showcasing architectural innovations like the soaring arches of Gothic design. The Church's influence extended far beyond the spiritual realm. Popes crowned emperors, shaping the political landscape. Church courts held sway over legal matters. The Church levied taxes, amassed wealth, and played a significant role in economic life. However, this power was not without its challenges. Corruption within the Church sparked calls for reform. The Crusades, a series of holy wars launched to reclaim the Holy Land, had far-reaching consequences, both positive and negative. The Church's influence touched every aspect of medieval life, shaping the era's values, worldview, and legacy. Section 5. Seeds of Innovation, from Cathedrals to the Printing Press. Contrary to the Dark Ages label, the Middle Ages witnessed significant technological and cultural advancements. The seeds of innovation, sown in the fertile ground of this era, would blossom into the Renaissance and beyond. The construction of magnificent cathedrals themselves spurred architectural innovation, with the development of pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses, allowing for taller, more elaborate structures. The invention of the watermill revolutionized agriculture, providing a more efficient way to grind grain. The heavy plow, another key innovation, allowed for the cultivation of heavier soils, increasing agricultural output, and supporting a growing population. Perhaps the most impactful invention of the era was the printing press. Developed by Johannes Gutenberg in the 15th century, this invention used movable type to mass-produce books, democratizing knowledge and paving the way for the Renaissance's explosion of learning. In the realm of culture, universities flourished, becoming centers of scholasticism, a philosophical and theological system that emphasized logic and reason. Gothic art, with its emphasis on height, light, and emotional expression, took root in architecture, sculpture, and painting. The Middle Ages, far from being static, were a time of intellectual ferment and technological creativity. Section 6. The Crucible of Change, Crusades, Plagues, and Wars. The Middle Ages were not without their share of turmoil. Major events like the Crusades, the Black Death, and the 100 Years' War shook the foundations of society, leaving lasting impacts on Europe and the world. The Crusades, a series of religious wars launched by European Christians to reclaim the Holy Land from Muslim control, had far-reaching consequences. While ultimately unsuccessful in their primary objective, the Crusades had a profound impact on European society. They fostered cultural exchange between East and West, leading to the introduction of new goods, ideas, and technologies. The Crusades also stimulated trade, as European merchants sought access to Eastern markets. The Black Death, a devastating pandemic that swept through Europe in the 14th century, decimated the population and had a profound impact on social and economic structures. The plague's toll led to labor shortages, which in turn empowered the peasantry and weakened the feudal system. The 100 Years' War, a protracted conflict between England and France in the 14th and 15th centuries, further transformed warfare with the introduction of new technologies such as gunpowder and cannons. This devastating war had a lasting impact on the development of national identities in both England and France. Section 7. Dawn of a New Age, the Renaissance, and the Legacy of the Middle Ages. As the Middle Ages drew to a close, the seeds of change sown during this era blossomed into the Renaissance, a period of remarkable artistic, scientific, and intellectual flourishing. The Renaissance, often seen as a rebirth of classical learning, was not a sudden break from the past but rather a continuation and culmination of trends that had been developing throughout the Middle Ages. The rediscovery of classical texts preserved in monasteries and libraries fueled the Renaissance's thirst for knowledge. The invention of the printing press allowed for the dissemination of ideas on an unprecedented scale. The rise of humanism, with its emphasis on human potential and achievement, challenged the Church's dominance and paved the way for new ways of thinking. The Renaissance owed a great debt to the Middle Ages. The innovations, the cultural exchange, and even the upheavals of the medieval period laid the groundwork for this remarkable flowering of human creativity. The Middle Ages were not a dark age but a crucial bridge between the ancient world and the modern era. Section 8. Conclusion. Why the Middle Ages still matter. The Middle Ages, far from being a stagnant dark age, were a dynamic period of transformation and innovation. This era witnessed the rise of new empires, the spread of world religions, and the development of new technologies that would shape the course of history. The feudal system, for all its rigidities, provided a framework for governance in a fragmented world. The Church, while not without its flaws, played a vital role in preserving knowledge and fostering learning. From the soaring cathedrals to the invention of the printing press, the Middle Ages laid the groundwork for the Renaissance and the modern world. The interconnectedness of this era, with trade routes spanning continents and ideas flowing between cultures, reminds us that our world has always been globally connected. By understanding the Middle Ages, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexities of history and the long, winding path that has led us to where we are today. The Middle Ages were not a detour on the road to progress, but an essential leg of the journey, shaping the world we know and reminding us that even in the darkest of times the human spirit endures, adapts, and innovates.